Girl,
Girl,
bye.
bye.
Girl, bye.
Bye, girl, bye.
Girl, bye. Girl, bye.
Welcome to your safe space, honey. This is Girl Bye, the podcast amplifying queer voices and kicking down the doors to so called normalcy. Get ready for real talk, fierce discussions, and a whole lot of yes, honey. Hi, and welcome to Girl Bye. Today, our guest is somebody very special to the podcast, somebody that has truly taken some time to impact their community around them and really take the bull by the horns and create something amazing that has lasted many, many years. Somebody that, from what I've learned about their story so far, has truly inspired me to live more authentically myself as well. So today I would like to welcome Dove. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I am great and excited to have you on this podcast to really dive into some of your story, some of what makes you tick, and really gets you thinking and growing and impacting people around you. So, for the people listening that don't know who you are yet, let's give them a little bit information about who you are, where you're from.
Okay, so I figured you were going to ask this question, so I definitely prepared because tell me about yourself is a hard question. But I am Dove. I guess you could say I'm from North Carolina. I am a foster kid, so I was adopted when I was 6. I'm non binary, they series. I'm a balance of structure and creativity. I have a passion for the performing arts. I'm completely enamored with like sci-fi fantasy. I love like magic and stuff. So Charmed is my favorite show. I'm a lover of words. So I really love like every day kind of like finding a new word to learn. I'm consider myself a diverse individual holding within an array of passions and pursuits. And I feel like there's so much about me and there's so many things that I want to do that I feel like won't really fit in one life. Like, I want to be a lawyer, I want to star in a movie, I want to write a book. So, yeah.
I love the arts. I have been an art kid my entire life, so I love that. In your life so far, what is your biggest goal?
I feel like my ultimate goal and what I would want to achieve would be hard to measure, but really, whatever I do, I just want to like lead with love. So I want to impact people's hearts and make sure that everyone kind of feels accepted, feels like they have a place that they fit into. So whatever that looks like, whether that's doing a nonprofit or just in many ways, I want to help people in the sense of like making them just feel loved and accepted.
That is a great outlook. I mean, as a community, I think that there's a lot of space for people to just help uplift other people. We see on social media so much nowadays where it's just a constant bringing other people down and, that kind of terrible battle that we see all the time. And I think one of the main reasons I started this podcast was really focused around uplifting other people and showing that no matter what happens in life, things do actually get better. We do actually continue to grow. We can find community. We can build together. So I think all of those things are amazing that we can really work on. When your life did you officially realize that you were part of the queer community?
I believe it was, I'm going to say personally, it was elementary school. I felt like I was really possessive with my guy friends, like in a sense where it was like way too aggressive. Like every guy friend I had, it was like, I'm just really getting pissed off. I remember, like, just to give you an example, I was best friends with this guy in elementary school, and I was, what is it called when security, the person, what is it? I don't know the word for it, but I had a position in school where I put up
Huh?
a flag, I took it
The
down.
hall monitor?
Not really the hall monitor.
Huh?
I don't know what it's called, but it was something like that. But we both had that position. And a new kid kind of transferred in, but that new kid so happened to already know them. And so we were best friends, but then when that new kid came in, I noticed that they were getting closer with them. And that kind of just sent me into like a rage. And I kind of just felt like my rage was way too much just for that to be over a friend.
Right.
I also had another friend in elementary school where at the time, like we were on minutes, so it wasn't unlimited. And if somebody calls you, your minutes still get used. So I had his number and I kept calling him. I kept calling him. And I was like, I don't know why I was so obsessed, but he wasn't answering, but I just kept calling. Apparently, he came to school the next day and was like, dude, you used up all my minutes by calling me obsessively yesterday. So like things like that, I kind of had to just take some time to like reflect and be like, why am I so like obsessive over guys, and like what does that mean, and why is it so important to me, and why is it so serious? There's like one thing I'm like that's like for sure that I was like curious, but I'm like, is it embarrassing for me to share? But I'm sure we've all probably done something like this. But we were in the bathroom and I kind of like got on top of the toilet to kind of like look over to the other side of the stall. So I feel like all that in combination definitely kind of let me know. Like, I mean, obviously, when you're young, like, you don't really know how to label it or name it. But
Right.
that, like, looking back, that's like, that's kind of like, yeah.
Those are the moments that it settled in that like, okay, I'm clearly not doing the same thing that these straight people are doing, which is I think a moment all of us have. We all do the most craziest things during that time frame. For those of you watching the podcast that are not old enough to remember minutes, there was a time where we had to pay per minute, and you also had to pay for text messages. And I remember when you only talked to your friends after 8 o'clock at night because it was free.
I don't even know how I had a phone. So I don't know whose phone I was using because I don't remember me having a phone like in elementary school. I feel like that's too early, but
I didn't have a phone until high school.
I must have used my house phone. That must have been like,
Yeah, you
okay.
could have used your house phone. What a terrible time. We had house phones. Oh my God. The trauma that is now coming up in this whole conversation. I just remember people picking up the phone and the house phone and the phone going out, and you had no internet and
Uh,
it would mess up your computer. The times. Anyways, so to take us away from the trauma of the history of internet. In growing up, you go through middle school, you're going through your life. What things during this time frame, what were your steps in trying to figure out how to maneuver your life, being happy and living authentically you? How are you balancing it during this time being so young?
I think when it comes to socially, I didn't really have as much of a hard time as other people in the queer community. When I hear like really traumatic stories, I don't really feel like I ever came out, if that makes any sense. Like, I feel like I just was always me. And I feel like when I was younger, I just was like, I feel like queer aside, I just physically was just who I was. Like, I was the person that was annoying. I was the person that was always in your face. Like I'm the person that comes to school like, hey, like da da da. Like I'm the person that comes. That was the person that would come in the morning, and I'm like laughing, I'm screaming, I'm high energy. So I I was always kind of like boisterous, I guess. So
Mhm.
I feel like there was not really a coming out for me. I think I was just the person that did whatever. Like I just feel like I did whatever I wanted to. Um,
Yeah.
and even I don't want to jump too far, but I really just did whatever I wanted. I was suspended off the bus. I was like it was just so many things. Like I in high school, I think I had my senior year, I had like 200 tardies. Like I just didn't care. And so I think that me being like that, you know,
Mhm.
I think that kind of like intertwined with making it easier for me because people just kind of looked at me as that person who did whatever they wanted.
Yeah. What do you think it was that made you feel that way? Like to just not really care about certain things.
I personally think it came from me wanting to have control. Kind of like circling back, like when I said like I was a foster kid, that's a moment of like not having any control when
Right.
constantly auctioned off to families and you're having a trial period to see if it's going to work out or not. You're constantly having to be the one to be decided for and spoken for, and you don't really have control in your life. And I feel like when I did get adopted when I was 6, I think from there, it was just more like, I don't care about anything. I'm going to be loud. I'm going to do this. I'm going to have control. I'm going to get my
Right.
way. The world owes me. I think it was like kind of coming from like a sense of entitlement in a way. Because there was a lot of things that I feel like I got away with that people didn't. So like a lot of people have, my whole life, people have asked me, how did you get away with things? There's just so many things that I guess manipulated or like just got my way out of stuff. Like
Right.
even thinking about like bio class, you know, you have to be at the lab. At lab, I went to my lab class twice and still got an A. Like it's just, I think it's like I don't know where it comes from, but I really have to call it with like, I think I just felt the world owed me for what I lost or didn't have, and I kind of
Right.
to gain my power back. So I think that was like where that came
Like we go from like knowing nothing at all to like being small children and being exploratory and things like that. And you going kind of through this adoption. Do you remember kind of all of those instances where you were like potential adopting, meeting different families? Like how many families do you think that you interacted with in during that time before you officially got adopted?
Yeah. I feel like so just coming from birth, I was kind of of taken care of by a family friend. So it started off kind of intimate, normal, but kind of something happened and the family friend was trying to adopt me, but they didn't get approved. So from there, and the only reason I know this is because I've kind of been like trying to find things about my life. So I've been like researching and like
Yeah,
interviewing.
digging in. Yeah, why not?
um, but I would probably say it was about 4 families. It doesn't sound like many, but I was with the family friend till I think about 2 or 3. Yeah, I recall like 4 families, and certain things stick out because some crazy things just happened. So those are things
Right.
like I'm not gonna forget. And my penultimate family was like meant so much to me. So those memories are like kind of like really there. And the reason why that adoption didn't happen was because they were taking care of someone that was already in their family who was handicapped. And so the decision came down to how can we full time caretake a grown person who's handicapped whilst also trying to take in someone else.
A child, yeah. I mean, it's a lot of work to be able to do both things, and I can see where that can come to the plate. I think there's other things that should go into it, but that's for a whole different discussion on how the system works. But you ultimately get adopted. Where did you find your community?
I feel like I didn't really find that until probably middle school. My best friend is like, I would definitely say my chosen family. But I think I've had chosen people, but not really chosen families. It makes sense. Like, I think I've met so many people in life and had such great expanded experiences with them. But obviously, like people come and go. And so there have definitely been like chosen people that have kind of been alongside me throughout my life.
Yeah, and I think as we kind of grow and get older, we're always going to continuously evolve in that space of getting the community that we're looking for, which is beautiful. A lot of people will learn there's a lot of different types of community out there and what you're looking for and things like that. not having an ultimate come out story. This is a hot take that a lot of people hate from me. I don't believe in come out stories. I don't believe in the idea of having this like big moment of telling everybody that you are whatever you are. Just because I feel like straight people don't walk up to their parents and say, okay, like the same sex or whatever, you know? It's just weird because the reality is we shouldn't have these moments like this. We should just be able to live authentically how we want to live. I think that's what we need to really teach people.
And
So
I completely agree with that. And that's exactly how I wanted it to be for me. I even remember the moment in which I kind of was having the moment and wanting people to, I think my coming out story is more so expression. And that's how I view it. Like, I never wanted to be on a mic and be like, hey, like, this is me.
right,
But I wanted to express it. And so in high school, there was a transition for me. And I did it intentionally. I feel like a lot of things in my life was intentional. It was creative. It was planned. And so what I actually did was when I started growing out my hair, I colored it like midnight blue. I started dressing differently, being more expressive in fashion. And that to me was me saying, hey, yeah, I'm me now. And I've always been me. And y'all probably thought what it was already. But this is me letting you know that I've come to terms with it myself.
right.
And I want to express that and kind of like see what that looks like.
Yeah, and I think that I mean, that's the way people should be, right? I think all of us should slowly just you turn into who you're going to be. I think, and maybe not use that terminology because, people are going to say that it's a choice to be anything other than the social norm. But I think really diving into the fact that like the social construct is something that was created, is something that we should also question, right? And so being able to kind of just open up that expression of being authentically who you want to be and just living unapologetically yourself. There's a moment that changes mentally where you just kind of fall into this place of like fully accepting yourself. And I think that that's like a huge moment in your life when you can like look in the mirror and see who you truly are versus a lot of us were really focusing on trying to be the cisgendered straight man vibe. I remember going to school. I remember wearing the baggy pants and the Tims, and I'm a New Yorker, so I looked straight New Yorker for a minute. But the moment I opened my mouth and was like, "Girl, bye," they knew. Not in- So it's definitely a moment in life when you could like look into the mirror and say, "This is my expression of who I feel on the inside, on the outside."
Yeah. And I also feel like there's a difference between socially and also like kind of family. I personally feel like as far as I have a coming out story on the family end, but not on the social end. Because on the social end, when I stepped outside of the house, I was always gonna do what I wanted to do. But
Right.
when I went inside of the home, it was, and the weird thing is, I still did whatever I wanted to do, but it was just like my adoptive mom, she wanted she wanted me to admit to her that like I was queer. Like she wanted to hear it. And so she actually forced me to tell her. Like she locked me in a room and pretty much said, "You're not leaving this room until you tell me yes or no if you're queer or not." So that would be kind of like something on like a coming out story in a sense. But her doing that, like it's just like that was kind of a crazy moment. And then from there kind of things shifted in home wise. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just because after I said yes, when I woke up the next morning, she plastered the entire home with scriptures. So imagine I can't even imagine how many hours it took her to do that, because for me saying yes to leaving that room, to me going to sleep, waking up that morning to go to school to see the entire wall was plastered, and it was so like everywhere that I thought it was a new wallpaper. So it definitely took some time. And it's kind of like, honestly, that moment kind of leaves me like, that's kind of scary. So for something to have meant that much to you and have like been that deep to you to spend all that time when you really just could have had a conversation.
Right. I just find it wild. We're already internally going through our own thing and like trying to map out our own lives and trying to figure out how to like live with the social construct and live with what other people think and all of this stuff. And then you go to the people that you think should be the most accepting and should make it easier and help you through the process. And then they do something completely insane where you're like, I can't even tell you without some huge explosion of stuff that's kind of like part of this whole figuring out how to live authentically. And am tired of being the bigger person, of being like, I understand that you're not okay with people being gay, so let me go out of my way to make you feel better about your own personal problems. And I think that this is kind of like the time in our lives where like we don't have to do that anymore. We don't have to go out of our way. Like if you don't like it, that's fine. But we can still coexist and we can still live in the same space. How has your relationship changed from then to now?
Honestly, I feel like the relationship is not bad because I feel like I've just accepted it for what it was. I think that there is a point in time where you just have to like kind of reflect and take a step back and just kind of accept like when it comes to family, obviously like not other people, but I think like our relationship just is what it is. And I think that I have done a great job of just setting boundaries, of pretty much saying, like, even if you don't agree with something, that's okay. But I just personally like don't want to hear it. So if you feel like you have to leave the room or like, we there was a moment that kind of triggered you and that's fine, but like kind of step away and kind of but I just personally don't want to hear it. Like I don't want to hear any snarky remarks, any disparaging remarks, anything about like what you don't like. And the thing is, what I will personally say is most of the remarks coming from her were not LGBT based. They were more an attack on me personally. It was more like, why are you dressed? Why are you looking like that? You have pimples. Like it was more like making me feel insecure. And I don't know if that was because of the internal hate of me being queer. And that was just the way of projecting that. But I just pretty much said, like, I don't want to hear those remarks. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear this and that. And if you get to that point, I'm just going to leave. So we have to kind of make a decision here. You're saying that you want me to be in your life and you're saying that you want me to talk to you. That's okay. I will under these conditions. And I think that that's cool. I feel like when you just tell somebody, if this, then that, if not this, then that, then I feel like you've already set the tone for what you are going to accept and what you're not going to accept.
Right. I want to applaud you on being so strict with your boundaries and really understanding that as being a part of kind of growing and evolving. I think there's too many of us that allow our boundaries to be sacrificed because of the hierarchy of life, or because this person is somebody to you, they deserve certain types of things. And I think a trend in this podcast has been really focusing on the fact that, like, no shade, but it could be your mom, it could be your dad, it could be your grandma. You have to set your boundaries and stay strict to them, because if somebody that is that close to you can disrespect you and be okay with it, anyone can disrespect you and be okay with it. The stranger is probably going to be the most polite to you out of everybody you know. So, really kind of understanding that and setting your boundaries and sticking to them, that's hard. That is so hard, but really good that you have been able to continue to do that. In your relationship balancing, I will say, being able to navigate those types of things, other than being very strict on your boundaries and being very clear and communicating, what other things have helped you with kind of like your circle of people and really being able to still authentically be yourself?
So I'm going to be honest. I feel like I did a complete overhaul of the people in my life. I honestly feel like I've cut so many people off. Like, I honestly feel like I've cut everyone off. And I'm definitely one to do an apology tour. My emotions are definitely very all over the place. So I definitely have kind of cut everyone off, and the people that I felt that maybe shouldn't have been cut off, I went back and was like, hey, like maybe I overreacted, da da da. But as far as like what you're saying, there's one person in particular that I completely cut off. And it was because I tried to have a conversation with them. I let them know this is how I feel. This is how you make me feel. It was more of like a until you apologize to me, then I don't really foresee us ever speaking again. And this particular person tried to contact me. They tried to actually like bombard me. They showed up to my home and like was banging at the door. I'm just kind of like even with you banging on the door and doing all of that, and even with you doing all this, you're still not issuing an apology. Like you're, and I think a lot of people,
Right.
number one, I feel like we live in a society where one, a lot of people don't take accountability and a lot of people don't apologize. It's just simple as that. Like, and
Right.
I'm big on, I'm making people take accountability. I'm making people apologize. And if you don't take accountability or apologize, then we're just done. Like that's just like a hard thing for me. Like it's hard for me to be fake. Like I know a lot of people can do a poker face and stuff, but it's hard for me to just pretend that I'm not over it. Like it's just gonna show in my tone, and it's gonna be like a passive tone because I do have a passive side. So we're hanging out and it's like, yeah, but it's just gonna give like I don't really want to be there, but and so I feel like when it comes to revisiting things, I feel that what I've what I have to personally reflect on is how important is this person in my life? And I know a lot of people will say a person that deserves to be cut off deserves to be cut off. And I'm not going back and I'm not doing this and that. But honestly, there's a lot of people that you'll meet in life that you really just want in your life. And it's okay to try to make that work as many times as you can, as long as you can endure it. And so I have kind of actually thought about like, hey, like maybe I can kind of revisit this and like maybe I can give it another chance. Maybe if I say it another time, maybe if I do this. But that opportunity just hasn't happened and we haven't crossed each other's paths. But even with that being said, before I have a conversation with someone, I always think of what I want and what the solution could look like, would look like, and if I'm okay with accepting that. And with that particular person, would be okay with just accepting. I still want them to take accountability, but I would be okay with kind of just realizing, okay, I'll just accept them for who they are, and we will just have a limited relationship. So there are certain things I won't share with you. There's certain things I won't do with you, but you'll still be in my life.
Yeah, I think you hit on a really good point of the fact that like yes, for everyone listening, there is a point where like certain people should be cut off, and yes, they could be cut off, but also people can learn and grow.
Yeah, and I think that everybody has the opportunity to grow. Like even a 90-year-old grandma. I know a lot of people will say like, "Oh, the old people are stuck in their ways." Growth can happen, but pain has to happen. That is something that I'm personally like finding is true for me at least. Like it calls some time and space. It calls for you missing me. It calls for us having like, because I've had like panic attacks and like us having like huge, deep fights and like really getting into the gritty. And when that pain kind of gets there and people really wake up and see what's really going on, that can like really like, it may not be an immediate thing, but it'll at least open the person's eyes and be like, whoa, like this is really kind of like crazy and it can really get there. And like it really just kind of shakes people. Sometimes you just have to shake it up and first before like it kind of gets better. And I know they say like after a storm there's a rainbow. Sometimes you just cannot, like, don't be scared of having a storm with your relationships or friends or family, because what follows that could be something beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. The adventure of really balancing getting to know yourself versus understanding what's next and balancing that with creating your group of people is super important. We all need people, right? We're humans. Humans need other humans. You can isolate yourself all you want. People need people, right? So you grow up, live your life to the fullest, really doing whatever you anticipated doing because somebody with that many tardies is wild. So you ultimately go to college, you're living on campus, you are living your continued authentic life because you were living that already. What was your main accomplishments that you wanted to do when going to college?
Given the fact that I changed my major like 5 times, I definitely didn't really have a clear sense of a clear route of exactly what I wanted to kind of go there and do. But I just knew I wanted to an experience that could be liberating, could be of your own choice. It could be like whatever you want. And like you kind of have like, the access to do that. You have more people, you have diverse people. Like it's just, I think when I went, number one, when I went, my biggest concern was my appearance, honestly. Like, I was like, I kind of want to step on this campus. I want to eat it up and I want to serve it. And that honestly was like kind of my first thing. And I also want to like have a group of, I will say I did go in with like, I want to have like a group of gay friends and like, I want to call us the charmed ones and I want us to be like powerful. I've always lived for like a trio friend group. Like,
Got it. So you were trying to get casted on Harry Potter and you went to college. Got it. We needed the acceptance letter from Hogwarts University so you could have your 3O friend group. Got it. What made you create a queer club?
yeah. So when I came freshman year, there actually already was a queer club, and it was like it actually was good. Like when I first like, I want to say it was my first week. It was like welcome week, whatever. So I went to the interest social and it was definitely like really kind of like poppy in there. Like it was such a vibe. It was new. Like of course when you're a freshman you're seeing like all these queer people in one space and all these different types of people in one space. And then there's cute guys and like there's just kind of a lot going on. And so that club was there. But over time, it didn't. And I actually became like really close with the president of the club. But like as time went on, like it just kind of washed out and lost diversity. It lost attendance. It just kind of wasn't the same.
Do you think someone like graduated and left the group that was really keeping it together? Or do you think like just over time it just like the people weren't really that dedicated to it?
I think that's how it really always happens. I think that like people graduating and club transitions can make or break because I feel
Yeah.
like with different people leading, with different people at the helm, like things are going to run differently, things are going to look differently, and things are going to feel differently. But also, I mean, as diverse as UNCG is, that when you're not Caucasian, you're you'll just always be a minority. So I feel like I think it could be with who's leading it. I think it could be with what events they're doing, and like who they're targeting. Because I genuinely feel like there's always a target audience in any product, place, or anything you do. There's a target.
Yeah.
You have to start with who you're trying to reach and with when you figure out who you're trying to reach, that then brings, well, how can I reach these people? What are these types of people like, or what do these types of people do? So it's going to trickle into how everything kind of plays out. And I kept, like, I tried to give the club a try, and I didn't see people like me. I didn't have the same feelings about, I didn't have the same feelings, and I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel welcome. I didn't, it was just to give you a visual walking in. It was one race and it was one gender. That was everyone in the club. Like it just wasn't. And so I
The
talked
vibes were off. Yes.
I talked to the current president at the time. I let them know, like, hey, I'm gonna start a queer group, and this is not to be in competition with you. This is just to offer some more diversity. Like, your club is going how it's going, and that's great. But I want to target a more diverse audience. So that's what I did. To start a student group, you have to have 4 people, including yourself, a constitution written. That's pretty it. Really, it's pretty basic. To on paper start a club, obviously, it's a lot more work to, like, do everything. But I found 3 people and I was like, hey, this is kind of what I'm trying to do. Like, would you sign up? Would you be a member? And then I wrote my constitution. I had to figure out the name. But mainly in the mission statement, I wanted verbiage in there to catch the attention of people of color. And the club wasn't to say, hey, if you're not a person of color, you can't come. It was just specific verbiage so that when people of color saw it, it would target them. Everyone would come, and it would create a more diverse club within itself. And that's kind of really how it all started. I wanted a place where I felt welcome, and I wanted people who also were there, because clearly if that's all that was there, when I went, then there was other people at the school who also didn't have a place where they felt comfortable either. That was kind of like the beginnings of it all.
That's awesome. I think there's a lot of space there of just kind of creating something for yourself, right? It's like creating a space where I want to feel the most included because there isn't one. And when you start to do those things, I think that's the magic, right? That's like for being able to kind of just grow, develop, and then think of something like, hey, I would like to see myself in this type of situation and see these things grow. You know that there's other people that feel the same way as you. And I think that's what creates that community. That's what creates people that want to work together, that want to build things, that want to create different groups. I know for me, there was not many queer spaces growing up, and seeing that evolve over the years has been really amazing. Ultimately, us as a community have been able to achieve so much through creating community and getting together to be able to make a change and an influence.
And I really feel like the reason why it's lasting so long was because it had, like, a target audience. I feel like because it's trying to balance out and really increase the diversity, that's why it's lasting so long. Because I think if you have a queer club and it just becomes so one race, one gender, it becomes so just, it's not going to be for all, and it's like it's just not going to last as long. And also I think people's mission and purpose for the organization does have an impact, because what all does the club really mean, and what all does it really stand for, and how long are people going to, like, be behind it, in a sense.
That's definitely the driver, is the mission, right? It's like, what are we trying to actually accomplish? You set up this entire community and you start building it. At what point did you realize that this was going to kind of go beyond you? Or are you still kind of shocked it's still alive?
So I feel like No Labels had success immediately. Like, when you, like, really kind of look at statistics and you see, like, how long it takes for clubs to grow, because I come from, like, a math background, and, like, numbers, that was something I was kind of looking into and looking at. And numbers was something that was like really like that I was kind of like studying. With No Label's first event, which was the speed friending event, it brought in 97 people. And for for a club to be new, no one it's brand new, it's the first event, that's not really something you would hear of. And so even from the first event, I already was kind of like, okay, like this is like going to be a success. It may not average 97 people every meeting, but it's definitely gotten a lot of people's attention. And this is definitely something that people are interested in. And within the first year, No Labels won the award of Best Student Group Excellence for Advocacy. And so getting an award first year, that was also another like pivotal moment. There's just a lot of things that No Labels has done. This might go over people's heads and may not have been something now people did notice it, of course, but I don't think people knew who was behind it and who was the driver. But UNCG used to say homecoming king, homecoming queen. And I kind of went to see what we could do about that, because not everyone, like, someone might be trans or someone might like identify a certain way.
Right.
And then after kind of having a back and forth, now it's called Homecoming Royal Court. And so the words of king and queen have been kind of taken away. Now a lot of people were kind of like, but I want to be called queen, but I want to be like, there was a little bit of like a drama, but that's also like another pivotal moment that like just shows like how much this can make changes. Like for a university to make a change like that after saying king and queen for so many years, that's kind of like whoa. So that's when I was kind of like, wow, like this club is going to do great things. This club is going to continue to do great things. And this club is going to do like bigger things, even like when I'm not the president. And
Right.
a recent thing I want to like shout out, No Labels was in the UNCG magazine. And so that's like crazy. That might not be big to like other people, like, oh, it's just a magazine, I don't read it. But I don't know, like just for the club to have that much recognition to be
Yeah.
on a magazine.
Small wins, big wins, they're all a win. And I think that that's kind of like the pivotal thing to remember is no matter what, it's a win.
A win is a win.
A win is a win. I don't care. A loss is a loss, right? So a win is a win no matter what. So, in your college life journey, your dating life in that, what was it like? Were you an app girly? Did you meet a lot of people in real life? Loaded question.
It really is a loaded question. It is,
Yes.
because my dating life was quite crazy actually. Even from the first day on campus, it was quite crazy. Just to note, when I did go to the queer club freshman year, I actually went home with one of the guys who was at the meeting. So it's giving, hey, I'm a freshman, it's my first day on campus, and I'm already going to a upperclassman's apartment. Now, granted, drama followed. They actually had a boyfriend, and the boyfriend tried to come for me. I would say, partial app girly, partial not, because so many kind of guys was like already kind of just there, whether that's like DL guys, whether that's like,
Yeah.
and then there were also
You
guys.
just can't help being so attractive. They were just falling at your feet.
There were also like guys that, because I've always been the person that like people have liked me, but I never knew. Like, um,
Not the delusional girl.
I've always been that like the delusional, like, wow, they just don't get it. Like I've liked them this whole time. So there have like been like people in dorms and like guys and like also A&T as well, because No Labels did a merging mixer where
Not A&T.
we actually did the merging mixer at A&T. So we went over there. So it was like my dating life well, dating life in college was definitely crazy, ups and downs. But I definitely feel like I never had a breath when it came to, like, I don't know if you've ever like known people that they're always in a relationship. I think that was very well me, but I just wasn't in a
The serial dater?
relationship. Yeah, it was like when one guy was gone, another one was there. So like,
Yeah, to
um,
the left.
so it definitely like has, and honestly, like it's weird because like now that I'm kind of in the present, I'm like, how is it so jumping then? And it's like not jumping now. I will say my dating life has not been as expansive, and I'm kind of in my nostalgia bag. But yeah, like it was a good time. I honestly wouldn't. I don't think I would change anything, 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 but expressing myself differently. That's the only thing I will say. If I could go back, I would change.
Being in your nostalgia bag is funny because it is a time where you're kind of like looking back at all the things that you did. My biggest thing is, are you officially thinking back at anybody that you've ever encountered in your life and thinking that they're the one that got away?
Um, mm, a lot of situations I feel like we're toxic. Um,
You're like, no, hell no.
a lot of situations I feel like we're toxic, and I feel like I've done some crazy, crazy things. Like
What's the most crazy thing?
I wouldn't say this was the most crazy, but just something that can like fly off the lips because like it's in my head. I was kind of like in a situation with a DL college football player at A&T. Of course, with DL experiences, it's always kind of crazy. To see how crazy I was about it is what gets me. And I remember like we hadn't like talked in a while, very much breadcrumbing, very much I'll text you when I text you. And so when he texted me, it was like he randomly showed up at my dorm and was like, I'm outside. And I'm like, what? And mind you, I was all the way across campus. I don't like running, never been a track star, but I don't know why, but I texted him and was like, okay, I'm gonna open the door. I'll open the door in a moment. I ran all the way, like I ran as fast as I could get to my dorm. My phone literally flipped out of my pocket, hit the cement, completely cracked my phone. I was so pissed off. Picked it up, the show still has to go on. I went to the back entry of my dorm, went upstairs, and like kind of like got into my room and kind of pretended that I was already in there. And then like I let him in, and I did all of that running. My phone is completely damaged and totaled, just for him to come in, sit me down. And this is probably one of the craziest moments, well, one crazy moment I've had. Sit me down and he pretty much told me, so I'm actually not going to be able to do this anymore. I've been going to church and like I've been doing this and that, and like I'm converted and like da da da. It was like such a crazy moment. And I just remember like going ballistic because I was like, well, one, why are you here? Because like for you to be saying you like don't want to do like this anymore and you're this and that, why are you literally in my homeful abode? Why are you beside me inches away?
Yeah,
What exactly? That's like that
they want it one more time.
was. And so that's definitely, and I'm like, I definitely was like really pissed off because where's my phone? And I ran all the way and did all this for a guy that is saying what he's saying right now. So
Yeah.
I definitely would say I've always been like a hopeless romantic.
So fair advice to everybody listening. The DL guy is a bad choice. We already know this.
See, like, no, DL guys are bad choices. Like,
Yeah,
the
period. If
the
they
only,
cannot be truthful
the
at
only,
all to themselves, like,
the only
hello.
reason I was pressed for him was because he had status. It wasn't the DL for me. it was like A&T, like college football quarterback. Like it was just more like ego vibes, not like, oh, he's DL. It's more of like, well, I mean, I guess DL like would be part of it because it's more of like, y'all don't know I really got the deal. Like y'all don't know I really got the A&T college football quarterback. Like that's
Yeah,
very much that vibes.
period. And on that note, name him. Just kidding.
There's more crazy than that. Like I've literally like went to like am I oversharing? But I literally went to like a guy's like house or
No,
whatever.
we're gonna put a list out after.
I went to a guy's house and literally like I'm like, hey, la da da da, like I'm just in my la di da. And we walk in and like I just like from the rear like the corner eye, I just see like two naked guys. And I'm like, oh yeah, your room is this way, right? And he's like, no, we're actually going in there. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? And like, I had so much fear and scare right there because I'm it's like, it's three guys in here. Am I gonna get raped? Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. Like, I can't beat them up. Like, I just was like, okay, well, I have to get something out my car. And he was like, no, no, no. Like, what do you need to get out your car? Like, we probably like I was like, no, 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 I'm gonna come back. Like, seriously, really, like my car's right there. You can watch me. Like, um, it was just like
Ew.
that was
Drop that shit in reverse. Get the hell up out of there.
why would you put me in a situation like that? And who even said I would want to do something like that? Like, it was giving very much drugs and like they were like the two guys were just completely naked standing as though they were waiting for me. Like I kind of like felt set up and like they looked kind of like they were on drugs. It was just like really scary, but yeah.
Were they all DL too?
The thing is, the guy that see the funny thing is like the guy that I like house that I went to, I guess it wasn't his house, but he
Of
wasn't
course not.
he wasn't DO. Like so I don't really know. Mind you, those
Yeah,
two men were just random. Like those two guys were
that is wild. I'm glad I was never the pretty girl
random.
because that's crazy. I think those moments, I mean, whole faces are real, y'all. Like, I mean, sometimes there's moments that you're just like, this was a bad choices of, this was a bad row of yeses.
But I wouldn't really call like I would name mine a boy phase, like a plethora boy phase, because I didn't really have a hoe phase, like because I'm not really a sexual person, so in all these instances, sex was not had, like
Yeah.
it just was.
Well, and I don't like for everybody listening, a whole phase does not necessarily mean that you're out here sleeping with everybody. A whole phase can easily be like you're also dating six or seven people at the same time and getting free food and meeting all these people and interacting. That is an exchange of your aura and your energy, and that's what I consider like the more you interact with different people, you're giving off your energy. And if you're talking to all these people in a context of dating, getting to know them more sexually, all of that stuff, there all of us have gone through a whole phase. You've
Yeah,
gone through a phase in your life where you were talking to more than two ex people and you knew what the game was. You knew you were here.
you're in your game bag playing the game.
Yeah, playing the game. I think that's, I mean, that's what most people are doing, right? It's playing the game. It is a game. So, what is your dating life now like?
I don't really feel like I necessarily like I would have to give it to social media. I just personally this is like no like hate to people or shade to people who use like apps like Jack, Grinder, things of that nature. Personally, I don't want that to be my like experience.
Mhm.
So at this current time, like if it's not in person, if it's not us bumping into each other and I spill my coffee on you in a coffee shop, or like um, social media, and the person that I'm currently talking to was because of social media. So that's kind of like the navigation. It's just like social media and definitely Facebook. People sleep on Facebook, don't sleep.
Like Facebook dating
Just
or
Facebook,
just like Facebook in general?
not Facebook dating, but just
Oh, I'm like, Facebook dating? That's
Face-
wild.
Facebook has so many people. Like Facebook has,
Yeah.
and it suggests so many people. I like I get if I leave, I can come back to Facebook. It's giving 200 friend requests. And it's just people are adding you, and it's friends of friends. It's people you may know. It's I think that I know people love Instagram and people love whatever, but I think Facebook does a great job of mutuals and all these people. I see people that are from elementary school, and I'm like, oh my god, how did they suggest that? But it brings so many people to your interface, and I think obviously the more times people are seeing you, the more times people are being you're being suggested. It's just kind of more access to people to add you and to message you or to whatever. Now, I don't be on Facebook anymore because it's just I visit it once a week because I think that men in general are just exhausting and draining. It's just so much BS. You have to shovel through a lot of BS to actually get, literally you have to shovel through to get to the treasure deep down there. And it just it's just a lot. So
Well, I love that for you. I hate Facebook. I just feel like Facebook over the years have become something very different than what it used to be.
I mean, honestly, anything social media wise, if a guy wants something, they're gonna turn it into whatever they're gonna turn it into, and that just is what it is.
Yeah.
So being queer is hard to just put yourself out there just in person, because at least in a space that you really don't know if other people are that as well. But
Yeah.
even I'm gonna which is completely embarrassing, but I went to Pride, and which I thought was a safe space, and I actually went up to a guy to compliment him and da da da, and very much his response was, "I'm actually not gay. I'm just here because my friend is gay, and I'm just here with her." And that was that kind of got me to yeah, I'm never saying anything again. I'm never I'm not but it's just in person, you really don't know, and it can just be kind of difficult. But I think that goes to what you're saying, just organically. I think my definition of organic is leading towards the sense of you invite me somewhere and I meet your friends, and we're just having a good time, and it organically I might be like, oh yeah, me and so are really connecting and da da da. And I think that just kind of where we are at this point. If you want something real,
Yeah, I think the journey is hard. The journey is just really hard nowadays. And I think the other thing that the internet has given us is that when we were growing up with no internet, you almost were forced to bump into someone at some point in your life, like bump into them and, your hopeless romantic moment of spilling your coffee all over them and ruining their whole day. But you had to kind of bump into somebody and really connect. And now I think we've gotten to a point where all of us don't really believe that, right? Like the likelihood of me finding that specific other person in a 50-mile radius or a 100-mile radius of where I currently live is so wild with how many people are around the world.
literally.
So I think it's just figuring out kind of the both sides of it and really navigating that will ultimately you're going to find somebody, but I think it's just you're going to find them in the right moment,
Yeah, yeah. It definitely it's interesting because even kind of think of my adoptive mom, her current husband is a guy that went to high school with her, and they knew each other. It was just I don't know, it's weird. How are you in the same space and place? And
It's not the right time.
it's just were you attracted to me then? And now you're attracted to me? What's going
Probably not.
on? So yeah, I can see that. Like I can definitely see that.
Funny.
Not many people I could name that I feel like I've crossed paths with.
But maybe you have and you didn't interact with them. You never know. The world is smaller than everybody thinks. So, thinking back on your life so far, if you could go back in time and speak to your 10-year-old self, what would you tell them?
I would tell my 10-year-old self to take every opportunity that I had in mind. Because although I was kind of like, apathetic, I'm gonna do what I want, like whatever, it still was an emotional roller coaster. It still was crying after school. It still was not feeling like I fit in. It still was da da da. Like, because there were things that if I could go back, I would do. Like I've always wanted to be a cheerleader. And of course, cheerleading is a female dominated space. And,
Yeah.
you know, and like after I graduated high school, there was this guy who joined the cheerleading team. And like we've actually like we've talked, we've communicated. I was just like, oh my God, like I didn't know like that was possible and da da da. Because the thing is, you will have something that you want to do, you'll miss out on the opportunity just because you don't see it, just because you don't think that it can happen. And then people will come after you and they do what you wanted to do. And I honestly would just tell my 10-year-old self to pave the way. And that looks like don't be, not being scared to be the first to do it, because now that guy is the first to have been the first guy on the cheerleading team. I could have been the first guy on the cheerleading team. And now I'll never be on the cheerleading team because like certain things just pass you. Like, I mean, obviously you can do cheerleading and like pro and whatever, but I don't know. Like, there's just so many moments that I feel like I have missed out on because I didn't think it was possible. And the thing is, anything is possible. It might be some trials and tribulations to get through and to push it through, and critics to have to kind of deal with and endure. But I think when you look to the other side, even if I had tried to join the cheerleading team, going back and like I had to deal with critics and people coming for me and this and that. So yeah, like just I would tell that to my 10-year-old self, like don't be scared to be the first person to do whatever it is you want to do. Don't be scared of any opportunities that are coming your way, that are
Mhm.
on the table, or don't be scared of making opportunities that are not on the table. So, and that's something I would say to my 10-year-old self, and that's something I would say to everyone, because regret, nostalgia, and missed out moments, that's honestly something you just can't go back and do. So,
Yeah. I honestly live for that. Like, tell your 10-year-old self, go make yourself an iconic moment. Life is too short, and if you don't make yourself the iconic moment, some ugly bitch will. To bring this podcast towards the end, as we do every single episode, and with just a little bit of shade, because we have to be a little shady on the Girl Bye podcast. Dove, who would you officially like to say girl bye to?
well, I definitely want to say girl bye to KQ. I had to cut them off really for my sanity. It just wasn't gonna go down a good route for me. Kind of the backstory to this person, this was a romantic interest, and I feel like they pretty much were very manipulative. We started off and everything was good at first. It definitely was giving love bombing and them wanting to always be in my face, always over every day. And then it slightly kind of turned into something else of lies and like deceit, like even little things. They were telling me they were in an entirely different city when the whole time they were actually right across the street. And one thing about me, I am Detective Dove. Like I very much so was giving
Not the double D.
like it very much so giving one thing about it, like if you tell me something, I'm gonna do some investigating to see if it's true. Like definitely have trust issues. But it just started turning into a lot of like lying and stuff like that. And then the worst part of our relationship and time was they actually ended up like having a boyfriend. And so that was kind of crazy. And my emotions through that process of like, I kind of stayed around at first, like, hey, like, I don't want you not being in my life, and da da da. And honestly, I did stay around, but it really just was like very manipulative in the sense that like I was just kind of there as like literally aside. Like I was there when they wanted me to be. I was there on their beck and call, but it just was slowly kind of like, well, rapidly kind of like affecting me mentally. And it was also kind of changing me as well. Like there were certain things that like I don't really do. Like I'm not a smoker, I'm not a this and that. And so like when your life kind of changes and you're like, oh, I wasn't a smoker and now I'm smoking. Like I don't drink, but now I'm drinking just because I'm like around this person. So I definitely had to cut them off. And I just I had to do it for me of like, and it definitely took some time of me going back, cutting off and going back and cutting off and going back. It was just the final cutoff for me was I hate that it had to get to the point where they had to actually say something so crazy to me that I was like, whoa, I can't do this anymore. But honestly,
Right.
and this is something, and I'm actually glad they said it though, because it really has helped me navigate my relationships with people past that point. Because them saying to me, did you think you were that important to me? Now, like, that's something I'll never forget. Now, when I'm looking at like friendships, relationships, da da da, I'm on some, okay, Dove, did you think you were that important? Like, are you that important to them? It's time to get out of there. Like, it really was a statement that really kind of like is something I can take with me. After they said that, I was like, whoa, like this whole time I'm doing all this, I'm doing all that. I'm taking myself through emotional roller coasters for someone who actually doesn't care about me whatsoever. So yeah,
Hell.
I after that statement, completely cut them off. Never talked to them again. And honestly, am like so much better off. Like I'm in such a great space. I actually moved cities like because of them. But with people, I know a lot of people will say things like, I wish I never met you. Very much Kelly Rowland and Trina vibes. But
Yeah.
the thing, I don't really feel like people should ever regret meeting people, even if something bad happens, because the bad stuff is really what helps you avoid it in the future. Like, if you never kind of have a bad moment, you'll never really know what to avoid or the signs or the lookouts and the signals. And I think that I'm actually glad I met that person. I'm actually glad everything happened because I know what not to do moving forward.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing about meeting certain people. Even though we cut people off, that doesn't mean that we regret meeting people or that we despise them in any way, shape, or form. Every person that you meet in life, you're going to learn something from, whether that be something good or something bad. It's kind of what do you take from the situation and how do you move forward and progress, right? Girl, bye to that bitch because we moving on to bigger and better things. And that's on period. So, Dove, I want to first thank you for opening up and talking about your life and really diving into some things that I think are super inspirational for a lot of queer people out here that might listen to your story and relate to a lot of stuff going on. I also love the fact that we were able to highlight some of the really successful moments in your life, which is really, really great. So, thank you so much for joining us today on Girl Bye. So, for everybody listening that may want to follow you, learn more about your story, nobody slide into the DMs. He got a man. So, let people know where they can find you.
So you can honestly find me on the Diary of Dove. I have streamlined all my platforms, so that is my name on everything. So you can follow me on there. I plan on hopefully coming a blast back to social media because I am just like a lover of like content creation. And like I was a person that posted on my story every single day, like in the camera, talking about my story, sharing the things that I was going through. I was extremely vulnerable, crying on my story. Like it was very much that. And so I really want to get back into just like, you know, the power of vulnerability and like the power of like sharing your story, inspiring others, and things of that nature. So, the Diary of Dove is where you can find me.
Beautiful. So stay true, be you.
Literally. And I also want to say thank you to you because oddly enough, this like being here and actually, even though it was my life, talking through them and like revisiting it actually inspired me. Like, so I'm definitely gonna rewatch this episode and take notes on myself. But yeah, so I want to thank you for that as well because you're definitely doing something great. You're helping the people that are on the episodes, and you're also helping the people that are watching it, and much more.
Thank you so much for that. It really has been a journey. I take so much from every single story that we have done on the podcast that really inspires me to keep going and inspires me to keep talking to people and learning new stories and learning things I never thought I would come in contact with. And I think it's just amazing to see people kind of talk through their lives and remember things as you're kind of going through it. A lot of the time, we never sit down to really think about our dark moments or our good moments. We're kind of just like living life and moving forward. So I encourage everybody, if you're listening to the podcast and take a moment to reflect on your own life. Take a moment to think about what you've done, what you've accomplished, how you've done certain things, and have a circle of people to talk to that are willing to listen. I think that's like the biggest thing. So thank you again for joining us. Everybody can look at all of the places that you can follow Dub in the description below on YouTube. Please like, share, and comment. If you would like to see somebody on the podcast that we haven't had yet, drop it in the comments. I'm excited to see who you might want to see on the podcast. And as always, we will catch you on the next one.
Girl, bye.
Girl, bye.
Girl, bye.
Girl,
Girl, bye.
bye.
Bye, girl, bye.